It was a chilly Halloween weekend, and since it fell on a Saturday this year, my family was in full swing with the decorations. My mom took Halloween seriously, always trying to make our house the best stop for trick-or-treaters. We lived on a corner in a quiet suburban neighborhood, so decorating the side of the house was a must, along with the front. That afternoon, a few kids came by, but not as many as usual. It was cloudy and cold, with rain in the forecast. My mom couldn't seem to understand why there were fewer trick-or-treaters, so she sent me up to the attic to grab more decorations, convinced that the lack of them was the problem. Despite my protests, she insisted, so I reluctantly pulled down the attic ladder. I climbed up into the dim attic, searching through the remaining Halloween containers. After finding one, I started dragging it towards the ladder when I heard a faint creak from the far corner. The sound of wood cracking under pressure, though odd, didn't raise much concern. Attics make weird noises all the time. I shrugged it off, carried the container downstairs, and helped my mom set up more decorations outside. As the evening wore on, the wind picked up, and rain began to fall. By now, the trick-or-treaters were almost non-existent. My mom, who had prepared a ton of homemade goodie bags, was clearly disappointed. The rest of the evening was spent with me in my room, gaming, while my mom remained downstairs. Later that night, a thunderstorm rolled in. It was the perfect spooky setting for Halloween, but I was focused on my game when, once again, I heard a creak from the attic. It was louder this time, like someone moving above me. Pausing my game, I listened closely. The sound stopped, but something felt off. I stepped into the hallway and saw the attic door slightly ajar. My heart raced. I crept toward my parents' room, quietly opening their door to find them both asleep. I woke my dad, whispering that someone was in the house. He immediately got up, grabbed the police baton he kept for emergencies, and cautiously looked into the hallway. When he returned, he whispered that he had seen someone climb into the attic. He quickly locked the bedroom door and called the police. We stayed as quiet as possible, waiting. When the police arrived, they searched the house and eventually went into the attic. There, they found a disheveled man hiding behind the wall of boxes. He had snuck into our house the day before when the door was accidentally left unlocked. He had been living in our attic since then, using one of our blankets and eating from a jar of peanut butter he brought up there. The man, though creepy and unsettling, wasn't violent and was removed by the police without any incident. However, the thought of what could have happened if we confronted him ourselves still haunts me. When I was 18, I threw a Halloween house party at my parents' house. It was a closed invite, meaning I told people not to bring strangers, as that was one of my parents' rules. My parents were away that weekend, which was why I could have the party. Another rule was that the house needed to be cleaner than it was before the party. I invited about 50 people, and around 40 showed up. The party started around 6 p.m. just as it was getting dark. The event took place both in the backyard and on the first floor of the house. My parents left me some money for refreshments like soda and food to leave in the kitchen for guests. I told my parents it would be a non-alcoholic party, but I had a feeling they knew that wouldn't entirely be true. One of my older friends brought his DJ equipment to provide music, and the party was in full swing by nightfall. Everyone seemed to follow the rules and didn't bring strangers, as I recognized almost all of the guests. Most people greeted me when they arrived. I didn't drink much myself, as I wanted to stay somewhat responsible since it was my party, but many others were getting drunk as the night went on. At one point, a friend came out of the house after getting some food and asked me who the guy in the skeleton bodysuit was. I didn't remember anyone wearing such a costume, so I went inside to check. A few people were hanging out in the kitchen, and when I asked if they had seen someone in a skeleton bodysuit, someone mentioned that they had seen him snooping around the house. I started to get concerned and asked if anyone knew who he was or had invited him, but no one did. I began searching the house and eventually found him walking down the stairs. I asked him, "Who are you?" He replied, "Mike. I was just using the bathroom upstairs," in a deep voice. He seemed older, and his build was a bit stockier. When I asked who had invited him, he said, "Tom," but I didn't know anyone named Tom. I then asked him to take off his mask, but he ignored me and walked out the front door. I quickly ran upstairs to check the rooms, fearing something had been stolen. However, all the doors upstairs, except for the bathroom, were still closed, and nothing appeared to be missing. I locked the front door and told my friends about the strange encounter, but no one knew who the man was. Eventually, I let it go as the party began winding down around midnight. Most people had left by then, and a few close friends stayed behind to help clean up. After the party, one of my friends decided to sleep on the couch in the living room. I brushed my teeth and changed into my pajamas, then went downstairs to hang out with him for a while. We had some drinks and watched funny YouTube videos quietly, as my little sister was asleep upstairs. However, at some point, we both heard noises from upstairs that sounded like footsteps. I assumed my sister had woken up, but when I never heard her door open, I got confused. I went upstairs to check and knocked on her door, but there was no response. When I peeked inside, I saw she was still asleep. Feeling uneasy, I went to my parents' bedroom and noticed that the door was slightly ajar, which was strange because I had made sure it was closed earlier. As I carefully peeked through the crack in the door, I saw the man in the skeleton bodysuit standing inside the room. I didn't panic or scream. I calmly closed the door and went downstairs to tell my friend that the guy from earlier was still in the house. He quickly called 911, and while he was on the phone, I went to my sister's room, woke her up, and explained the situation. She followed me quietly downstairs, and we left the house through the back door with my friend. We went to our neighbor's house and rang the doorbell until they answered. We waited there until the police arrived. By the time they got to the house, the man had escaped through my parents' bedroom window, which was now wide open. The closet door, where my dad kept his safe, was also open, suggesting that the man had been trying to steal from it. We never found out who the man was, but it was someone who knew I was hosting a party, someone older, and someone who knew about my dad's safe. After my sister told my parents what had happened, I was never allowed to throw another party at the house. This was my last time going trick or treating on Halloween, and as a final farewell, I wanted to make the night special. The night before, I stayed home with 2 friends all night, preparing for the next day's festivities. The basement had just been renovated into a spacious entertainment room, so we decided to spend the night there. Around midnight, we turned off the lights and got ready to watch a newly released horror movie. Just as the movie started, the motion sensor light outside suddenly turned on, interrupting the atmosphere we had set. At first, we didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just the wind moving the branches, but the light kept turning on repeatedly, as if something was moving outside. To figure out what was happening, my friends and I went to the back door and looked outside through the window, but we didn't see anything. We gave up checking and returned to the basement. The night went on, and we set the movie aside, instead telling ghost stories. However, the flickering of the sensor light made the atmosphere increasingly tense. The next night, feeling a bit uneasy, I went out trick or treating with my girlfriend. She was always especially sensitive to scary things, so I decided not to tell her about the strange events from the previous night. Just as we were about to finish our trick or treating, a person dressed in strange clothing appeared behind us. He was wearing ordinary clothes but had a bizarre mask, standing completely still. When he started following us, I felt uneasy and decided to head home. After getting home, my friends left, and it was just my girlfriend and me in the house. To relax, we decided to watch another horror movie. But halfway through, the power in the entire house suddenly went out, and all the lights turned off. However, the sensor light outside came on, illuminating the backyard. At that moment, a tense atmosphere surrounded us. I told her to stay inside while I went to check the backyard. As I approached the sensor light, my heart began to race. Standing near the bushes was the masked man, silently watching me, as if waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, he charged at me, and I barely had time to react, quickly retreating into the house and locking the door. My girlfriend and I hid in the basement, our hearts pounding. I grabbed my phone and dialed emergency services. While waiting for help, I heard footsteps upstairs. He had entered the house and seemed to be searching for us. In that moment, time felt like it had stopped. My girlfriend and I held our breath, the only sound being her rapid breathing. Suddenly, I heard police sirens in the distance, and the footsteps upstairs grew quieter before a door slammed shut. The police arrived, and we were safe, but the man had vanished without a trace. That Halloween night, which was supposed to be my last carefree trick-or-treat, turned into one of the most terrifying memories of my life. I will never forget that mask or the eyes staring at me from the darkness.